At the moment, we see that both the negotiating partners are very, very far apart. Is there a way forward?
Well, of course, we don't know how far apart they are because the UK, now that the UK's bluff has been called by the initial negotiating guidelines of the European Commission, the UK has met those with a deafening silence. So we don't exactly know how far the sides are apart, and it really is incumbent on the UK to state now what its position is and the extent to which it is or is not willing to live up to the promises made by some on the vote leave side, like Boris Johnson, that UK citizens living in the EU and EU citizens living in the UK wouldn't lose any of their rights. But what could both sides do now to, as I put it, press the reset button on this? I think the first thing that could happen is a joint political declaration saying that at the very least, as a bare minimum, people who moved to the UK before Article 50 Day and UK citizens who moved to the EU in the same period will have all their rights, residence rights, but all other rights, work rights, family rights, and the rest of it, guaranteed for an extended period, say at least 5 years. So that at least would provide a considerable degree of reassurance that nothing bad is going to happen anytime soon. The second thing that could happen in the short term is that the UK government should make a unilateral declaration, not really on the final solution, but on the system that it uses for permanent residence. It should say that that permanent residence system will be suspended and it will be replaced by a much simpler, lighter touch system, dropping the questionable requirements for comprehensive sickness assurance, dropping the absurd 85-page form, ending the practice where EU citizens have to surrender their passports, and putting the burden of proof firmly on the Home Office if it wants to show that EU citizens haven't been continuously resident. That, again, would generate a huge amount of goodwill on the part of EU citizens in the UK and indeed on the part of, among the EU 27 governments. And third, both sides could say that citizens' rights will not be held hostage to the inevitably difficult political wrangling about the size of the exit bill, the UK's financial obligations. That is, this issue should be carved out and settled separately. That won't compromise the EU's insistence that all this has to be done and dusted, or at least done in principle, before the negotiations on the future relationship starts. It would mean that the citizens wouldn't be held hostage to the divorce bill dispute. So that's what should happen now. What should happen? What should the eventual deal look like? Well, there's a huge amount of detail here, which I won't be able to explain now. But briefly, this is broadly what I think should happen. We should agree on all sides, on a reciprocal basis, that all rights should be preserved for a period of 5 years or so. That is to say, existing rights under the free movement and other associated directives would continue for 5 years. And this would be enforced to satisfy the understandable desire of the EU 27 governments for independent assessment of this. This would be compliance of this would be enforced by an independent court, but to satisfy the not unreasonable demands of the UK that the ECJ should not continue to have jurisdiction post-Brexit, it would not be the ECJ. It would be some form of independent arbitration or jurisprudence, perhaps something like the EFTA court, where both the EU and the UK were represented. So that would be what would happen first. Then, what happens after 5 years? I think the UK has got a point when it says that European law cannot continue to apply indefinitely in the UK for a period of 70, 80, 100 years, the entire lifetime of the citizens in question. Equally, they need to be guaranteed their rights. So what I'm saying is that after 5 years, all EU residents in the UK would have the essentially automatic right to UK citizenship. They would be guaranteed full equal treatment with UK citizens if they chose. Now, to make that a sensible reality, of course, the EU 27 and the UK would also have to agree not to penalise in any way any national who took up dual citizenship in another country. That is to say, the UK would agree that that UK citizens who took up French nationals wouldn't lose any of their UK rights, and vice versa. That's very important. But that would mean, and we have to face this square on, that the EU nationals in the UK would lose some of their current rights. Those rights that they currently have that are greater than rights that UK nationals have under UK law. That, I think, is unwelcome to some, but I think is a sacrifice that probably will have to be made at some point.
You've written a lot, you've done a great deal of research into migration. The UK still needs EU migrants, and even a Brexiteer like Tim Martin from Wetherspoons has said, I want a special relationship where workers can come. What about those workers coming in? Will they be second-class EU migrants in your solution?
I think under almost any conceivable solution, they will be second-class EU migrants in the sense that those EU migrants who arrived in the UK before whatever the cut-off date is, whether that's Article 50 Day, Brexit Day, or something in between, will have the right to permanent residence and ultimately, under my proposal, and I think under a number of proposals, the right to full UK citizenship. And that is not the same status as people who come under any new immigration system post-Brexit, who will be essentially third country nationals. And of course the same applies to UK citizens coming to Brussels or anywhere else in the EU. The ones who came while the UK was still a member of the EU will have some special rights and privileges, and it's right that they should do so because they came under free movement. Those of us who come after Brexit will come as migrants and will presumably be treated as third country nationals. That is, I'm afraid, an inevitable consequence, effectively, of Brexit, whether you like it or not.
You're focusing on EU migrants in the UK. What about British citizens who have chosen to live and work in the EU 27?
Well, what I'm saying would apply as far as possible to British citizens anywhere in the EU 27. Again, I think that they should have their rights fully guaranteed, all the rights they have now, for a period of at least 5 years, and after that they should have the right, should they choose, to assume, in addition to their UK citizenship and without losing any privileges of their UK citizenship, they should have the right to assume the citizenship of the EU country in which they are then resident.